It's Big Board Sports with Roger Wyland on 104.5 The Team.
Benjamin Allbright, former NFL scout, current draft analyst, and sports talk host out in Denver, with us here on Big Board Sports as we close in on the draft, and it seems to be a quarterback-heavy driven draft. That is for sure. The Giants are our top regional team of interest. It's right there at number 2, and a lot of speculation that maybe they don't take a quarterback and they go running back because they're not that high on the current crop. Let's see what Benjamin Allbright has to say about that current crop. He joins us here on Big Board Sports, 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio in Albany. Good morning, Benjamin. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
We're good, man. Appreciate a few minutes. How do you rank them? All these college quarterbacks that some teams are really high on or say they're high on. Where do you rank them?
Well, I think, a lot of it comes down to fit. I don't think that the number one guy for one team might necessarily be the number one guy for another team just based on what they're trying to do, on offense. I would say that if we were looking at actual fit, Josh Rosen is probably the best fit for the New York Giants. But I would say that if we were looking for the Cleveland Browns, I would say Sam Darnold is probably a better fit for them. So I think ranking is a bit subjective based on where they wind up.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading yesterday where former Giants VP Mark Ross, who's done a lot of scouting, and he had some panel discussion about the quarterbacks. He said that if the Giants were to select a quarterback, they should take Baker Mayfield.
Baker's my top quarterback. Okay. I don't think that he's a fit for the Giants, but I think that I think he could wind up having a fantastic NFL career. He's got elements of Case Keenum, elements of Russ Wilson to him, and I think that he could absolutely have a fantastic career. I don't know that he's the best fit in that New York spotlight, but he could be.
Benjamin Allbright with us here on Big Board Sports, and great stuff on Twitter. Check him out at Allbright NFL, 2 L's in Allbright. Benjamin, let's debunk the theory here, which I know I've seen you do on Twitter, that size doesn't always matter when it comes to the quarterback position. So people listening here may hear you say Mayfield's your number one quarterback. Well, he's too short. How could he play the position at a high level in the NFL? What have you seen from Mayfield on game tape that leads you to believe he's the best quarterback prospect, regardless of who's picking where, really?
Well, I mean, first of all, you got to, the height thing is an old misnomer, and in the modern NFL, where guys are having to manipulate the pocket quicker, those tall guys with the wide-based legs aren't really a fit for what they do anymore. You want a guy with low mobility, a little shorter stride, is able to manipulate the pocket better. As far as Baker being too short, I think that's ridiculous. He's taller than Drew Brees. He's taller than Russ Wilson. 2 guys have already done it. I think that's a bit ridiculous. And then you go to the tape and you look at the throws he's making. First of all, you're throwing through lanes. You're not throwing over guys. That's ridiculous. Anybody who's ever played the quarterback position will tell you, you're reading between the guys. He's already throwing over a line that's NFL-sized line. Mm-hmm. So why would he not suddenly be able to do that at the pro level? It's just absurd what these people will put out there.
I'm anxious to hear more on Baker Mayfield. You think of all the quarterbacks, he might be the best of the group?
I think so. He's got all the things you can't coach. He's got all the intangibles. You talk to guys. I was down there in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and when he came down and when he got in there, he energized practice. Guys who had never met him before were saying to me, I wish that guy had been my quarterback. And these are guys who had good quarterbacks at the schools they went to. He's just a guy who takes command, he leads the charge, and he executes, and he energizes. He's not like like Johnny Manziel, where he's lying to scouts off the field about his drinking problem. He's showing up late and doing the celebrity thing. Baker has the quirks to him, and he's a little brash and a little cocky, but it's all in the leadership component of what he does. It's not look at me, showboat showmanship.
Do you have any idea, as one of the big stories here is Benjamin Allbright with us, former NFL scout and current draft analyst and sports talk show host out in Denver, any idea which team Kirk Cousins is going to end up on? Because the Jets and the Jet fans would love him in gang green.
Well, I'll say this. I know that Kirk has not made a decision at this point, so anybody reporting that a decision has been made or is leaning one way or the other is false. But he does have some kind of leaders in the clubhouse, and I would suggest that Denver, the Jets, and the Minnesota Vikings would be in that top-tier group of teams that he would want to go to.
Okay. And we also heard this week that Jacksonville is going to make a strong push as well, and that Jacksonville has the money to get Kirk Cousins.
They do short-term, same scenario as maybe the Minnesota Vikings, where they both got built-in defenses and kind of a built-in team around them. The problem is that both those teams, Jacksonville and Minnesota, have a lot of free agents coming up in the next year or two, and they're going to need to pay them. So if they do pursue Kirk Cousins, both those teams will need to do an incredibly front-loaded deal with a lot of cash up front in order to keep Kirk Cousins. And I don't know that Kirk necessarily wants to do that. You know, a lot of guys want the cash up front. Kirk wants that long-term stability. A deal that's meted out over time and means the team can't cut bait with him after 2-3 seasons. So a team that is able to have a little more cap flexibility than just stuffing all the cash in the front end, like the Jimmy Garoppolo deal, might fare a little better, like the Giants or like the Jets or the Broncos.
Benjamin, back to the top of the draft and the Giants, who most of our listeners pay closest attention to. Do you believe it would be a mistake of the Giants to not draft one of these quarterbacks at number 2?
If they don't, they should definitely trade back and let one of the teams that wants one of these quarterbacks up there. You know, if I'm the Giants, I would draft one because you can never have too many quarterbacks. And I don't know, you know, when the last time somebody said, "Oh, we got too many talented passers on our team. I don't know what we're going to do." That's an absurd line of thinking. So, you know, you've got Eli Manning, who, while still a great quarterback, is, you know, he's in the sunset of his career, as it were, and you need to have a contingency plan going forward. So if you see a guy in this class you think could be that guy, why not take him?
Why not? No doubt. I think at the end of the day they will. I'm kind of hung up on Saquon Barkley. He's really good, and Penn Stater, and the way these running backs are going these days, Benjamin. I mean, a guy's not only going to run the ball, but the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield and block. I mean, Barkley does it all. If they're not going to take a quarterback, you would think they'd have to go Barkley at number 2.
I would suggest they trade back and then take Barkley because if you look at the way this thing's going to play out, you could see 4 quarterbacks going in the top 6. You're probably going to see, Minkah Fitzpatrick go at 4 there. So that really leaves, the Colts at 3 as either Saquon Barkley or Quentin Nelson. And then if you can get back a little further, well, you can pick up some draft capital, still get Barkley, and be fine. And if it doesn't work out, there are plenty of talented running backs in this class. Darius Geis, Rashard Penny, Sony Michel, the Jones kid out of USC. There are a lot of good running backs in this class. Barkley's very good, but you can get value a little later rather than having to spend a top pick on him if you trade back.
One team who may have a quarterback position in flux, even though he did just end the playoff drought in Buffalo, is Tyrod Taylor and the Bills. And obviously they would have to move up, Benjamin. I say obviously, but maybe not. I would think they'd have to move up to get a quarterback they really like in the first round. How do you see that quarterback situation playing out in Buffalo?
Well, I would think that they would trade Tyrod. I don't think they're going to outright cut him. I think they want an asset there, and I think they realize they need it because they've got 21-22, and they want to get up. So, they realize they're going to have to leapfrog Arizona, to get up there, and that's another team that would be looking to move up. Plus, those teams that are already up there may be looking at a quarterback. So, one of those teams is going to end up being the loser in that situation, not getting the quarterback they want. I suspect it's going to be Arizona and not Buffalo simply because they don't have the assets.
Fair enough. All fun stuff and lots to talk about. It was sports talk, that's for sure, here in Albany. And for you, Benjamin, in Denver, we thank you for a few minutes for joining us here on ESPN Radio in Albany.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime.
Thanks, Benjamin.
Benjamin Allbright.